And welcome everyone to our weekly Croí Connect series, where we aim to get your answers to all your burning cardiovascular health and lifestyle related queries. So it's the week after Easter and we're all feeling the after effects. So we're here with Dietitian Suzanne Seery today to help us get back on track and to discuss a whole range of dietary related topics over the next 30 minutes or so. Suzanne works closely with Croí and is a clinical tutor of nutrition and dietetics at the University of Limerick. So you're very welcome, Suzanne. Thanks for joining us today. When we put the call out last week that you were joining us, we were inundated with so many questions. And I guess that reflects the fact that, food plays such a big part of our lives. We all have to eat, but we want to make the right choices.
Thank you very much, Irene. I'm delighted to be here and delighted to hear you had so many calls from the public. As dietitians, we're here to support the public to make healthy food choices that will improve and optimize their health. And I suppose now more than ever, nutrition is something really positive that we can focus on and take more control of to support our health and well-being during this time.
Great, Suzanne. So we're going to get started, and I'm going to kickstart what I suppose a big concern that a lot of people have. And what we're hearing is that, the current COVID-19 situation, and the question this morning alludes to this, and it's from Sarah in Ballinasloe, and her question is: in the new year, she was really focused and on track with making healthy changes. She lost about 5 kilos and was feeling great. Now she feels her weight is creeping up since the lockdown, and she doesn't want to undo the hard work and what she has achieved already. But it sounds like Sarah's feeling a little bit unmotivated at the moment.
I know, and that, I suppose, it can be maybe something that a lot of people are experiencing at the moment. I would say to that caller that, the focus really very much on the positives. She's made a lot of changes, obviously, in her lifestyle to achieve that weight loss. She's probably created a lot of healthy habits. And I suppose it's a time maybe to reflect on those healthy habits that she's now embedded in her day-to-day routine. And things like, planning her day. So maybe taking 5 minutes at the start of a day just to plan out the meals and the meal times and the recipe and the ingredients that you'll need for your meal. And now, I suppose, when we are at home, we have a little bit more time to maybe research some new meal ideas and to prepare some new and exciting recipes. And I suppose the other thing to say is that caller, if she has lost weight, she's hopefully feeling the benefits of that, in that she's maybe hopefully feeling more healthy overall. Her sleep pattern hopefully is in good shape, and she's finding she has more energy. And those are really positive things to focus on in terms of what has been achieved so far to help keep and stay motivated. So we have lots of healthy recipes on our website, the Croí website. And also another thing to look at as well is portion sizes. So I suppose paying a little bit more attention to our portion sizes. If you do feel maybe that the activity levels have dipped a little bit, say if you were out doing exercise classes in gyms, etc., now all of that is cut back a little bit, maybe readjusting our portion sizes a little bit can help. And I suppose we've lots of resources available on the Croí website, and one of them would be the portion plate, which you can see if you click on croí.ie. And it really, I suppose, talks about prioritising fruit, vegetables and salad as half the portion on your plate. A quarter portion should be your carbohydrates, and choosing the high fibre carbohydrate options, and a quarter portion should be your protein. So trying to maybe adjust and realign your portion sizes a little bit around that. And then I suppose the other thing is that stay positive. You've lost weight, you're hopefully feeling good as a result of that, and just maybe keep reflecting on what has worked well for you in the past to help keep you motivated in the future.
Thank you, Suzanne. I think that's, what you touched on there in terms of staying positive is really important, because I think sometimes we can beat ourselves up a little bit, and for many of us, our routines are out the window now. So, we should try and, focus on the positives and look at maybe moving forward than looking back the way.
Exactly. So staying on track with the meal routine is a really good idea. I suppose sometimes we might find at the moment that we're slipping out of our normal routine because we're at home, we're in a different environment to where we normally would be. And so setting maybe a timetable for yourself, I know it sounds a bit regimental, but setting a timetable saying I'm going to get up, get showered, have my breakfast at say 8 o'clock every morning, then I'll have a mid-morning snack, might be a piece of fruit, then setting a plan around what you're going to have for lunch that day, and maybe do that within around the 1 to 2 mark, and then in the evening preparing and planning for an evening meal. And I suppose that helps. We know having that structure and routine around our eating pattern helps prevent us from kind of grazing and maybe snacking more as a result, because if we start grazing and snacking, then our kind of routine can go out the window. So trying to stick to those meal times will help control our appetite and keep on track and prevent us maybe taking in those extra kind of sneaky calories from extra snacks throughout the day.
Very good. Suzanne, the next question follows on from that one, and this is from a busy dad. His stress levels are through the roof. He's noticed that he's reaching for all sorts of junk food at the moment and he can't seem to get a handle on it. Do you have any suggestions?
So yeah, I mean, it is a stressful time for people. You know, lots of people maybe are worried about finances, work situations, etc. And we know that acute stress can actually dampen our appetite for some people. So it can mean we can lose our appetite. But if we have prolonged periods of stress, that can raise a hormone in the body called cortisol, and that can actually heighten our hunger hormones and make us feel more hungry. And I suppose when we talk about comfort eating or emotional eating, that's kind of where that comes from, and that we use food as a way of soothing and dampening down those stress responses. So I would say, I suppose it is important to think about the root cause of that stress. So, you know, what is cause? What are the triggers around that stress? And I suppose there are lots of ways, I suppose, we can kind of help ourselves to manage our stress better. So that would be things like taking a little bit of me time out, going for a walk, getting out into nature, doing some meditation. There's lots of lovely apps out there like Headspace and Calm at the moment that can help talk us through some nice meditations. Focus on our breathing, tuning in, I suppose, to our bodies a little bit more in terms of how we're feeling, and then I suppose thinking about whether that is just a reactive emotional response that we're going to that's driving us to eat, or whether we're actually hungry, because there's a difference between, I suppose, that emotional hunger and that physical hunger. And so I think definitely, you know, having healthy snacks in the house is really important as well. So, you know, nice healthy snacks to have and to include in the shopping list would be, you know, your fruit, fresh tinned fruit. You can chop that up and add a handful of nuts to that. And if you want that sweet crunch, that's a nice combination. Your carrot sticks with your hummus, your yogurt with some stewed fruit, you know, a rice cracker with some peanut butter and some sliced apple. So having those kinds of healthy snacks available and visual to you. So the bowl of fruit, for example, in the kitchen, that can trigger you to go and pick something up and have that. And staying hydrated as well is really important, because that helps with kind of controlling our appetite as well. But definitely the me time is really important, and keeping maybe a diary around your food and your mood can also help understand a little bit more about what's going on for you, when those trigger times are, and how you can maybe best manage them as well. And there is the Mind Your Mental Health. The HSE have nice resources developed now to help to guide us to maybe understand a little bit more about the effects that stress and these types of stressful situations can have on our mood, and how we can best manage them as well.
Mm. And Suzanne, there's also the piece around, you know, out of sight, out of mind. So, you know, do we need to be a little bit more mindful when it comes to doing the shopping and maybe not having the junk food in the house in the first place?
I mean, that is it. You know, again, within limits, you know, especially, you know, around Easter time, we're all entitled to enjoy a little bit of chocolate. Food has so many different elements to it. It has a social element, it connects people, it has a comforting element during tough times as well. It has a caring element where we prepare and make food to care and nourish others. It's a sign of love. So food is quite complex, and you're right, we do need a little bit of a sweet treat every now and again. And it's just a case of, I suppose, being more mindful of how often we have those treats. So as if we have those sweet foods every day, then they're not really something then that is considered a treat. So just, yeah, having a limit, maybe having them out of sight in the cupboard away, and having maybe agreed times in the week or during the day with the family that you have that treat. So maybe at the weekends or at one day during the week. I suppose the healthy eating guidelines would say those high fat, high sugar, sweet foods should be kind of limited as much as possible, because they don't really give us any nutrients as such, any vitamins or minerals. They just have calories from fat and sugar. So trying to maybe limit them to around kind of 2 times a week. And there's lots of other healthy snacks that give us loads of good nourishment and that we can have throughout the week on the other times.
Great. Suzanne, alcohol sales are booming in Ireland at the moment and across the globe. And people are finding that they're having a glass of wine more often, maybe during the week, whereas maybe in the past they were, weekends. So firstly, how much alcohol is too much, and how do we know if we're overdoing it?
So in terms of the guidelines, what the guidelines recommend are 11 units for a woman during the week on a weekly basis, and a max of 17 units for a man on a weekly basis. And the recommendations are to have at least 2 to 3 alcohol-free days of the week. And we know in Ireland we have, I suppose, a unique relationship with alcohol, and we do use it to kind of de-stress and relax and kick back. But we know that alcohol can have a negative effect on our immune system. And actually the WHO has come out and said this, and they have said that it would be advisable for people to refrain from alcohol consumption at this time, because alcohol can actually interrupt or negatively impact our immune system. And our immune system is composed of many cells, and some of the cells line our gut and our lungs, and that's a protective physical barrier against infection. But drinking excessively, regularly, so on a day-to-day basis, can actually impact those cells and prevent them from working as well as they can to work to prevent infection and keep our immune system strong. So that's the reason why the WHO have come out with those guidelines. And just to go back to your point about what is drinking too much, we know that drinking 6 or more units is considered a binge episode of drinking. And we actually know that from all the Healthy Ireland studies that have been conducted, that 1/3 of people drink to excess. So they drink, when they do drink, they drink 6 or more units. And so it is really, maybe I would say, a time to reflect on your relationship with alcohol, maybe take a pause on it for now as a way of helping to support your immune system and protect yourself against COVID-19 and other infections. I suppose we know alcohol has a calorie value as well. So if we're trying to maintain a healthy weight, or we are trying to lose a little bit of weight and stay as healthy as we can, then maybe reducing our alcohol intake is also another way to help with that, to help get our overall energy intake down, to help support a healthy weight.
Suzanne, just briefly, you mentioned units and the 6 units
Yes.
go. What is a unit?
That's a really good question. And so a unit of alcohol is a half a pint of beer, or a standard alcohol volume beer or stout. It is 100 mils to 125 mils of wine. That just depends a little bit on the alcohol content. It's 35.5 mils of a spirit. So your gin, your whiskey, etc. So that they're the alcohol units. And I suppose my tips would be, in terms of maybe choosing a light or lower calorie beer if you are going to drink some alcohol, to watch the mixers that we put in with our alcohol. So choosing the no sugar, reduced sugar mixers, or our colas or whatever we choose, choosing the no sugar versions of those, and I suppose, trying to keep to the recommended upper safe limits. So that would be 2 units in a day for a woman and 3 or so units for a man in a day. So trying to definitely not exceed that 6 units per day, and definitely have some alcohol-free days in the week. And as I said, maybe a time to maybe reduce down overall or pause alcohol for now.
Great. I think that's really good advice, Suzanne, and particularly because, alcohol can be a trigger to other behaviors as well. And, people are at home a lot more now. And so really good advice. And we haven't really heard a lot about actually how alcohol increasing the risk for the coronavirus. So I think it was really interesting when you were mentioning there about, its impact on the immune system. And this was our next question from one of our stroke support group members in Mayo. They were wondering, just in general, what foods should we be eating now to help fight the coronavirus? What will boost our immune systems?
So, I mean, definitely, like, food and nutrition is something really positive that we can focus on to support our overall health and well-being at this time, and to protect us, to keep our immune system working as well as it can. But we know that there's no one magic potion, one magic food, one superfood that's going to protect or stop us from getting the coronavirus. Rather, it's more about having that balance and eating a wide variety of foods. So there are some key nutrients, those of the vitamins A, C, D, E, and the B vitamins, and then some minerals like zinc, selenium, and iron that help support our immune system. And actually, on the Croí website, we have a lovely article that goes through each of those nutrients and where we can find them in our diet. So I'd encourage people to take a look at that. But really, it is about following the healthy eating guidelines from the Department of Health, and they include eating good quality lean proteins, so your lean red meats, your poultry, your lentils, your plant-based sources of protein, your fish, including your fruit and vegetables every day. So having some vegetables or salad with every meal, and fruit as a snack or before or after meals. To include, to stay hydrated is really important. And also, I suppose, if I was to say one supplement which would be recommended for overall good health and to support our immune system, it would be vitamin D. And we know in Ireland we're prone to being deficient in vitamin D because of where we're located in Northern Europe. We don't get that sunlight that support that allows us to make enough vitamin D, and particularly during the months from September into the springtime, into March, into around this time of year. And so the advice from the HSE would be that all adults particularly should take a 10 microgram supplement every day. We know that doses of supplement up to 25 micrograms a day are okay and safe, but because vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin, it means we store it. So if we take very large doses of supplement, that isn't safe, that isn't good for us either. It can affect things like our heart rhythm, or it can affect things like kidney stones as well. So I would say, those at risk could potentially take up to 15 to 20 micrograms a day, but generally for all adults at the moment, 10 micrograms a day of a vitamin D supplement is recommended to help support overall health, our bone health, and also our immune health as well.
And people can get their vitamin D in their local pharmacy as well at the moment.
They can. You don't need a prescription for vitamin D necessarily, but your GP can prescribe it, and you can pick that up. There's no problems there in getting access to a vitamin D supplement.
Good. So we're moving on now to some questions around cooking. So I'm used to eating out, and now I'm finding I'm having to cook for myself every day. I'm struggling to have a varied diet and keep resorting to a sandwich or a bowl of cereal. What other simple meals could I try that would be healthier? And this is from one of our volunteers in Ballinasloe.
Okay, so what I would say is the humble sandwich isn't such a bad option. I suppose it's what we put into it and the kind of carbohydrates that we use to create that sandwich. So I would say being creative with that. So as long as you're using a high fiber wholemeal carbohydrate as your base for that sandwich, whether that be a wholemeal brown bread or a whole grain wrap. And the key thing to look for is the fiber content of your carbohydrates. So you want something that has greater than 6 grams or more per 100 gram when you're looking at the nutrition label. Now I'll just get my food label guide here. So on the website, Croí's website, there's a guide to food labeling. to understand how to make healthier choices when shopping. And it does highlight that when you're looking at your carbohydrate-based foods, so things like your pasta, your rice, your bread, your cereals, that you're going to choose something that is high in fiber. And the benefits of fiber are that they give us they help to release that energy from the carbohydrates nice and slow and steady. And that's important especially for people with diabetes as well, that they choose higher fiber carbohydrate options. And then the other thing is that it helps support good bowel function. So it helps with, preventing constipation, which we know sometimes, I suppose if we're less active, we're sitting a lot more, we can find maybe our bowels may become a little bit more sluggish. And as we age as well, our bowels can kind of slow down. So fiber is really important to help with our bowels, to keep them moving, to prevent constipation, to give us that nice, slow, steady release of energy. And it also gives us a lot of those other vitamins that we were talking about there to support our immune system, so things like our B vitamins as well in particular, to help release energy from our food. So lots of reasons to include some whole grain carbohydrates. So the other thing then will be your fillings. So what are you going to choose in your meals or in your sandwiches or your snacks? So I would say always choosing and having a lean protein. So that could be your chicken. You could dice it up and put some nice seasoning on it, like a Cajun kind of spice and chili, garlic, etc. Your tinned fish, so maybe experimenting with different tinned fish options, so salmon, tuna, putting a little bit of spritz of lemon, dried herbs, for example, oregano, thyme. They can all add lots of flavour. So some nice lean proteins there, and vary your proteins throughout the week so that you're not having chicken every day. That you're having maybe 2 servings of fish a week, which is recommended for overall good health, and one of them to be oily fish. So that means we're getting our omega-3 fatty acids, which support our heart health and our brain health. And then looking at maybe some plant-based options, so making something up like a chickpea salad, and you can put some grated carrot in there, some spring onion, beetroot, tomato, etc. Using lots of those kind of vegetables and salads chopped in different ways that can be used as a side to an open sandwich, and they're very quick because there's no real cooking involved. Using tinned, say, fish, tinned plant-based proteins, etc. All you need to do really is open the tin and maybe chop up some other fresh salad options as well to throw and mix in together with that. And I would say, there's lots of recipes out there. Croí have lots of recipes on their website, quick and easy meal ideas. We also, Safe Food also has lots of recipes now at the moment, because they're supporting the body that help promote good health through safe and healthy food. And they have lots of instructions, I suppose, on how to make the basics, how to make porridge, boil an egg, etc., which can be useful for people maybe who aren't, I suppose, in that routine of cooking or preparing meals. They would have maybe eaten out a lot more as part of their day-to-day during their working week.
So we need to be brave and experiment a little bit more. So the next question actually, again, is along those lines. So I found that my teenagers have sparked a new interest in cooking the family meals. While this is great, what healthier meals could I encourage them to try their hand at, especially with the younger children being fussy eaters?
Yeah, and I suppose if they can maybe get into the habit of wanting pizza and chips every day of the week, so we don't want that. And I suppose the idea being here is that they've got the time now, that they have access to the kitchen. So I would be saying younger kids especially can get involved in weighing ingredients, in coming up with different filling ideas. They can the older kids, so from 9, 10, 11, 12 onwards, they can be involved in chopping ingredients up, etc. So I would say, first of all, get them involved in the food preparation, get them maybe involved in thinking of recipes that they'd like to try. So again, going on to the Croí website or the Safe Food website or the Irish Nutrition and Dietetics Institute website for some ideas around healthy meal options. And I suppose another idea is to maybe try some themes. So kind of going Italian one night, going Mexican the other night. So getting them involved in maybe preparing the quesadillas or the fajitas, where you can chop up nice onion, tomato, peppers, etc. Then the chicken, etc. can be prepared and chopped, and then everyone has a kind of a role or a task involved. You can even start getting dressed up as a Mexican kind of cowboy or an Italian football player or whatever, and get into maybe creating kind of a festive feel, a social environment, and something I suppose to look forward to in the evening times with family, tuning out of work and spending time connecting and having some fun over food. That's really, really important at this time, and something that most of us can do now that we have that, theoretically, that extra time at home and access to the kitchen.
Great, Susanna. You know, I think that sounds really creative, because I think we're all looking for ideas of what to do at the moment, and I particularly like the idea of introducing a bit of fun into all of this as well. So I'm working from home and have 2 small children. They seem to be eating much more than normal. How can I keep them fuller for longer with healthy snacks? Now, I have to admit, I have 2 girls at home. One is 7, one is 3, and I have the same problem here.
Yeah, I suppose my advice is, I suppose, stick to the routine that you already would have had in the past when they were out to school and they were having their breakfast before they left for school, their mid-morning snack, their lunch, an afternoon snack, and then the evening meal. And I suppose that the healthy kind of options would be, you know, the piece of fruit chopped up, or the yogurt, a cracker with a little bit of cheese, carrot sticks with some hummus or some soft cheese. They're all kind of very healthy snacks with a little bit of protein in there to help with keeping them a little bit feeling that fullness for longer. Protein takes a little bit more time to be digested or broken down and leave our tummy, so that's how it gives us that nice feeling of fullness as well. So I would say, I suppose the idea is that, you know, if they're sticking to that regular meal routine, then those kind of in between mealtime snacks should be all that they need. And obviously, maybe if they're out and exercising a lot more, hydration is really important as well. So if they're out now in the good weather and they're being more active and they're maybe sweating a little bit more, so staying hydrated is really important. So we know that, I suppose, kind of around 1 litre for very young kids a day is a guideline, and then up to 1.5 litres a day for older children, kind of around 9, 10, 11, 12 and onwards, and then any extra fluids they might need if they're being particularly active as well. And we know that that just helps to kind of regulate our appetite, because sometimes when we're thirsty, we think we're hungry, but actually we're just thirsty. So giving them a drink as well before the snack can maybe help with controlling and helping with appetite as well. But young active kids should, there's absolutely no harm in having that breakfast, mid-morning snack routine, lunch, mid-afternoon snack and evening meal routine every day.
That's very helpful, Suzanne. So moving on, our next question is from a frontline healthcare worker. She's a nurse in Galway University Hospital, and of course she's working very long hours and her breaks can be irregular, and she's wondering what would be a suitable healthy snack to keep her energized during her shift. And I know we're hearing a lot now about Feed the Heroes and all the rest of it, but it sounds like this person wants to have some snacks to hand as well.
Yeah, I suppose I'm just thinking about the frontline workers, and I know obviously a lot of maybe the regular places that they would go to for their meals and their snacks or their breaks might be closed on site at the moment. So a lot of them are probably having to plan and prepare meals and snacks to bring with them, and what I would say is invest in a good cooler bag so you can store your food safely, and Tupperware boxes, and so what I would say is, in terms of snacks, what the kind of key components for a healthy snack would be your whole grain high fiber carbohydrates, as I mentioned. So that could be things like your rice cakes or wholemeal high fiber crackers, which are kind of nice and easy to bring and to package with you, say pita pockets, etc., that can be put into the toaster, for example, or just, you know, sliced kind of wholemeal bread. And then your protein, so bring protein. We know protein has that satiating effect as well, so your kind of cold meats or a bring a tinned fish with you, so your tinned sardines, tinned tuna, etc. You know, you can buy these now in the per portion packs, and they're handy to bring. And then, you know, bring maybe a full tomato, carrot, etc. So those kind of veggies and salads with you, and pack them. Or you could bring maybe a meal or a pasta salad that you've prepared as part of a meal the night before. Maybe your family or partner has helped prepare the meals while you're working on the front line, and you could bring a box of that leftover meal with you as a main meal, and that can be quick and easy to eat. And then other healthy snacks that maybe when you've very short amounts of time available to you, it's all about, say, the yogurts, the fruit, you know, they're kind of the main, I suppose, ones that, and then nuts and seeds are also a good one. So chopping up your fruit and having a handful of nuts, and the protein in those, just as I said, helps with that satiety as well. So yeah. So and I suppose the other thing is things like, you know, your snack bars, etc. So things like your oat-based breakfast bars, etc. Choosing those that have a lower sugar, or have a content, or have no added sugar to them as much as possible. So there's kind of those high kind of protein snacks as well. So I would say is, you know, they're absolutely, by all means, they can be useful as a snack, but just watching the amount of added sugar in them. And a low sugar food is considered a food that has 5 grams or less of sugar per 100 gram. And it's also useful to look at the ingredients list as well, because if there's any added sugars, they will be included in that ingredients list, and you'll know the kinds of sugars that are added. So it could be just honey or a syrup or something like that listed, and that would mean that there's added sugars in that snack, or whatever it is that you're purchasing that has a label on it. So I mean, I would say those kind of oat-based kind of bars can be useful, but just watch the amount of added sugar that's in the ingredients.
Okay, that's very helpful, Suzanne. So moving on just to shopping, because we got a lot of queries about shopping and just, you know, general tips and advice with regards to specific aspects. So one query was, how safe are the open display foods? So things such as bread, our fruit and veg, and then our meat and our fish counters, because I've noticed in some supermarkets their meat and their fish counters are open, and others they're not. So you know, should we be cautious here in light of COVID-19, do you think?
I suppose fundamentally it's all about practicing good personal hygiene and good hand hygiene, and those, I suppose, involved in the supermarkets, working on the front line at the supermarkets, have all been trained in terms of how to handle food and present food safely. So I would say they're putting their best practices in place to prevent any infection. There's no real evidence to say that the COVID-19 virus can be transmitted by food directly. And the best authority on that would be the Food Safety Authority of Ireland. So they have some nice statements up on their website as well to highlight, I suppose, good food hygiene practices and good food safety practices. So wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands is the main message there when it comes to doing your shopping, and avoid overhandling food as much as possible, and follow the guidelines within the supermarket then as well in relation to social distancing.
Great. Suzanne, Maeve is one of our health programme participants, and she has written into us and she has said that I've been dropping groceries to my elderly mother, but she often forgets to write a grocery list. What are some of the key foods I should get for her so that she can make some healthy meals and snack with ease? Have you any suggestions? And I think this is a really good question, because lots of, you know, all our older people are cocooning at the moment, those over the age of 70. So I think this is a really good question.
Yes, Irene, and I suppose these are our more vulnerable groups, if you like, so those over 70. And I suppose I'm conscious that a lot of these individuals might have been used to maybe attending day centres for their meals. They may have eaten out in their local cafes or restaurants, and now all of that has suddenly kind of closed down, and they haven't that access that they would have had. And I mean, a lot of them probably have the basic cooking skills, but it might be just more of an effort, or take a lot more energy for them to prepare meals, and that's why I suppose they would have eaten out more. And also eating out has been a social link for older people in the community as well. So I'm conscious of all of those kind of changes for older people. And also we need to be mindful that if older people have been sick or unwell, they may be more at risk of malnutrition, where they may have lost weight. And losing weight when you're older, especially that over 70 category, can affect our immune systems. So we know now is a time to help prevent weight loss, to maintain a healthy weight as much as possible within that age category. And with that, I suppose the key foods and suggestions I would have for that query is that really it's about having that wide variety of foods in our diet. Particularly, some of the key nutrients would be things like protein-rich foods. So protein has a role in building and repairing our body cells and our body tissues, and also preserving our muscle mass. And muscle is really important as we age, because we do know we lose muscle over time as we age, but actually using our muscle by being physically active and also then eating good quality proteins in our diet helps us to hold on to that muscle, and it helps, particularly those over 70, to stay active and be able to do all the activities of daily living that they would like to be able to do. So your protein rich foods are things like your chicken, your tinned fish, your frozen options as well are really good. So things like frozen fish fillets, which don't require a huge amount of prep. So those kinds of things would be useful to include in the shopping list. So frozen fillets of fish that can be taken out and either poached or grilled or baked in the oven with minimal preparation. Your tinned foods, sometimes they may need a bit of a hand with opening tins, so you can now buy fish that's in in a kind of a sealed pack as opposed to a tin. You can buy things like baked beans now in little plastic tubs rather than a tin, which are much easier for people to maybe open. They're a good kind of healthy low prep idea in terms of a light meal, so beans on toast, for example. So those are the kind of the freezer options. Then will be your frozen mixed vegetables, where you don't need any prep really, so they're all chopped, washed, ready to go. And if they're boiling a few potatoes, they can throw into a colander on top of their potatoes their vegetables, and they can steam those vegetables as they're cooking the potatoes. And also those kinds of foods like frozen veg and potatoes can all be cooked in the microwave as well. So I would say, choosing kind of those kinds of foods. Also ready meals, I know sometimes they get a bad rep, but actually at this time, if people are feeling their energy levels are low, or they're just not used to cooking or preparing meals, then choosing ready prepared meals isn't a bad option at this time, and having a stash of those, say, in the freezer or in the fridge for the week is really important. And what I would say to those that are shopping is check the use by and the best before dates as well. So the use by is one is a guide just to the quality, but the best before date is around the food safety. So definitely choosing one with as good a best before date as possible is important. And then when it comes to things like your vegetables and your fruit, tinned options are also good options. So tinned pears, tinned peaches as well, and frozen fruits, and they can be kind of a handful of those can be thrown in the porridge in the morning and cooked with the porridge in the microwave or in the pot, whichever way the person likes to prepare their porridge, thrown into any cereal really. Some cold cuts of meat, so kind of easy again to prepare and serve with, say, some chopped tomato, lettuce, or some bread as a light evening meal, so that they're getting their vegetables and some vegetables and fruit in every day, because that's a good source of fibre to keep the bowels moving, that they're having some carbohydrate at every meal, whether that be some potato or bread or pasta or rice. And I suppose meals that can be maybe batch cooked. So lots of people, particularly older people, like things like casseroles and stews, etc. So if they're able to make those, then that recipe is kind of taken from them, and they can buy those foods in the supermarket. Or else, if you're helping out with the cooking, that you would prepare maybe a stew or casserole, you can put it into your Tupperware boxes, and they can have maybe a few of those portions for the week that they can reheat in the microwave or the oven when needed.
Great, Suzanne. So a lot of very practical advice there, and it's about really keeping life easy and simple as much as possible.
Yeah. Just one thing I would say is, just if you are concerned about somebody, an older relative or a neighbour, I mean, things to look out for in terms of signs maybe that they might be at risk of malnutrition, or if you notice some weight loss. So if you notice maybe that their jewellery or their watch is a bit loose around their wrist, if their clothes look a bit looser on them than they would normally, if you feel like that you just get a sense that they're more fatigued or tired, or their mood is maybe a little bit dipped, that they're signs that maybe they've lost appetite, or they have lost some weight. And I suppose it would be important to keep an eye on that, and also to link back in with the GP, because there are I suppose nourishing nutritional supplement drinks that the GP can prescribe as well, to help allow that person to get that extra protein and calories that they might need. And also the INDI, so the Irish Nutrition and Dietetics Institute, a group of dietitians who specialise in working with older people, have developed some nice resources on ways to add nourishment to your food. So those would be things like, you know, choosing maybe the full fat versions of dairy foods, like instead of, if they were typically having the low fat versions, if they have lost some weight and you're worried about that weight loss, that they would choose the full fat versions of milk, yogurts, etc. Now is not the time to be focusing on foods to help with weight loss, especially if somebody is recovering from an illness or has lost weight. Things like adding maybe some grated cheese or some extra butter into the mashed potatoes are also ways of adding extra protein or extra calories and protein into that food. So frying food more adds just a little bit of extra calories from the oil, and the healthy fats like the olive or the rapeseed oil, they can still be healthy fats, but they'll just add some extra calories to those meals as well. And there's lots of tips like that available on the INDI website.
That's great, Suzanne. Now we're drawing to a close here this morning, and thank you very much for joining us. You're an absolute mine of information. We've covered a huge amount of topics in a very short space of time, Suzanne. So I'd like to give you the last word, and if there were any key messages or key take-home messages that you'd like to emphasize for the public, Suzanne, it would be great if you could share those with us.
Yeah, so I suppose my key messages are focus on the positives. You know, nutrition and food is something that connects us all, and it's something that we can use to help support our health and well-being by choosing healthier foods and healthy food choices. And hopefully I've given you some tips on what to think about there. I would say plan your meals, so trying to be more organized around your meals and the ingredients that you need, and so that you can plan your trip to the supermarket and make the best use of your time in the supermarket, because we're restricted in how, I suppose we're trying to reduce how often we go to the supermarket. So plan around that. The next thing I would say is experiment. It's a time maybe to look at some new recipes, to create some fun around food, and to experiment in the kitchen. And also I would say watch out for your older neighbours and relatives, making sure that you're picking up on any signs that maybe if they have lost interest in food or lost their appetite, or if they have been unwell due to maybe COVID-19 or other illnesses, that you're supporting them to help get that nourishment in that they need to help prevent further weight loss or help build them back up after that illness. And I suppose as well, like everyone else, all health professionals are saying, wash your hands and practice good personal hygiene at home and maintain your social distancing at the moment. And also get out into nature and enjoy the walks and being out in the fresh air as much as we can within the guidelines.
That's excellent. Thank you very much, Suzanne, for joining us again today. I think there's a message there for everyone, no matter what your age, from the young to the older. And yeah, and I think, you know, it's really important that we stay positive, and, you know, that we're not overly ambitious at this moment in time in terms of trying to lose weight, that, you know, if we can keep things on an even keel and be practical about what we do, then you know, that's all really good. So Croí Connects returns again next week, and we're delighted to have Sarah Malloy, who's going to join us. Sarah is a coronary care nurse, and she's also the lead instructor here in the Centre for Life-Saving Training at the Croí Heart and Stroke Centre. So Sarah is going to talk to us about heart attack signs and symptoms, awareness, and also we'll have a lot of important messages for all of our community responders out there as well. So please do get your questions for Sarah in. As always, and Suzanne has mentioned this today, we've lots of information on our website, so do visit us on croí.ie or call us on our dedicated telephone helpline on 091 544 310. So please stay tuned to our website, and let's all work together on this. Thank you very much. Take care.